Hello, everyone. It's Brittany Savers, and I'm excited to talk with you about my quantitative research proposal. But before I get started, I wanted to share with you a little background about my interest in this particular area. I have about 10 years experience in pediatric practice working with children and their families from birth all the way up to transition age. During this time, placing a lot of value and learning the value of families and family-centered care principles, learning what type of vital role that the family plays and the influence of the family in a child's development, the child's values, and their belief system, but also realizing that the family unit also contributes to the growth of society as well as the growth of individuals within that family unit. So I have really carried this true appreciation of family-centered care principles and the need for healthy and well-functioning families with me that I have kept grounded in my practice as a pediatric occupational therapy practitioner. So, my presentation for you that I will discuss is titled Engagement in Family Occupations: An Entrenched Disadvantage Perspective. Listed on your screen are the objectives for this presentation, which includes first going over the introduction, the research problem and the research question, defining the variables, looking at instrumentation, participants, then looking at methodology, data analysis, research design, and finally limitations, and the references are included at the end. First, I will begin with a brief introduction and background on this topic of family engagement in occupations and its influences on family health. The family unit is an important context for developing children and to the growth of our society. According to the literature, given unprecedented changes to family structure, daily routines, and work demands, the integrity of family health and overall quantity and quality of engagement in family occupations for American families may be in jeopardy. Occupational therapy practitioners are continuously being held accountable to demonstrate how their services influence the health and well-being of those served. Since the inception of the occupational therapy profession, the power of meaningful occupation and its contributions to a person's health and well-being have been purported. According to Case Smith, 2004, over the past decade, engagement in family occupations have been found to contribute to the health, identity, and well-being of a family through emotional support, socialization opportunities, facilitation of independence, development of potential productivity, and educational readiness. The concept of family-centered care is not new to occupational therapy. However, despite a growth in practitioners' understanding and implementation of family-centered care principles, it has been argued that the occupational therapy profession has yet to identify and articulate the true meaning of family-centered care. And according to DeGrace, 2003, this is due to a lack of addressing the occupations of the family unit, measuring change within the family unit, and helping the family unit to meaningfully participate in everyday life. By demonstrating occupational therapy's unique contribution through the relationship between occupation and health, practitioners will have a more comprehensive understanding of family health and be better equipped and positioned for a critical role in family-centered care and family health promotion. Utilizing families of varying socioeconomic status who reside in an urban community in a southern state in the United States, this study will aim to determine if there is a difference between family engagement and meaningful occupations and begin to hypothesize if this level of engagement influences their family health experiences. The problem statement. Currently, there is a paucity of research in regards to the depth and breadth of scholarly conceptualizations of healthy family functioning. Most conceptualizations of healthy families are reflective of married, middle-class, Caucasian families. Given the diversity and varied structure in American family composition, and the need to capture the realities of various families that include diverse ethnic, cultural, structural, and class differences is paramount to contribute to the definition of family and to a more comprehensive perception of how child and family engagement in occupations can influence the perceptions and conceptualizations of family health. And this is especially important during a time when pediatric occupational therapy practitioners are moving into various fields of practice which involve systems and agencies as clients. This could create a reconceptualization of our current models of practice, which may further elucidate what our role is. And more knowledge about the experiences of families in regards to their engagement in occupations and their experiences of health may fill a void in existing literature and establish different and new ways of intervening with the family as an overall family unit. Therefore, the aim of this study will be to explore the comparative research question regarding how child engagement in family occupations differ between two groups of families residing in an urban community in a southern U.S. state, with one group of families experiencing entrenched disadvantage and one group of families who are not considered disadvantaged. Now I will define the independent and dependent variables. The independent variable for this study is the level of disadvantage experienced by the family. Specifically, this study will use the term entrenched disadvantage, which is described by the Australian Social Inclusion Board as the interconnected, complex, and non-discrete nature of disadvantage. Using the definition provided by the Australian Social Inclusion Board, entrenched disadvantage is conceptualized as including a complex combination of low income and assets, low skills, difficulties finding and keeping a job, housing distress, poor health, and other social issues. Other factors when considering entrenched disadvantage can include disability, discrimination, and mental illness. The dependent variable for this study is child engagement in family occupations. Engagement in occupations is conceptualized as the performance of occupations as the result of choice, motivation, and meaning within a supportive context and environment. More specifically, family occupations is conceptualized as activities that take place within the family unit and is something the family does together in everyday life when two or more family members take part. Next, I will talk about the instrumentation for this proposed study and how the previous variables described will be operationalized. Level of disadvantage will be operationalized through a researcher-developed sociodemographic profile questionnaire, which will be utilized to obtain general sociodemographic data on things such as age, gender, race and ethnicity, education, living situation, occupational roles, any self-reported diagnoses, and general functional level of the family unit. Pilot testing of the sociodemographic profile will be completed as necessary by the researcher to ensure the questionnaire achieves desired outcomes, appropriateness and placement of questions, timing of the questionnaire, and clarity of instructions and questions to all levels of health literacy. Engagement in family occupations is operationalized through the Child Participation in Family Activities questionnaire, known from here on as the Child PFA. The Child PFA is used to measure a child's engagement in family occupations. Part A of the Child PFA includes background questions about the child and the family, including the child's ability, family structure, and socioeconomic status. Part B includes 56 family occupations and questions regarding things such as frequency of occurrence of activities, presence of the child, siblings, caregivers, or paid personal assistance in the activity, child's engagement in the activity, the amount of assistance the child needs to perform the activity, and the use of assisted devices. Items are then organized into 7 activity domains, including indoor activities, meals, routines, outdoor activities, organized activities, outings, and vacations. The Child PFA was developed by Axelson and colleagues in 2013 due to a gap in instruments that have tried to capture information on the complexity and holistic nature of how the family unit explicitly engages in occupations together. The Child PFA was developed through a review of the literature, expert review, and pilot testing with families of children with and without disabilities. Its development was influenced by similar questionnaires, including the Children's Assessment of Participation and Enjoyment, the Personal Independence Profile, and the Family Inhabilitation Questionnaire. The Child PFA has reported good internal consistency and reliability of the engagement questions for families with a child with profound intellectual or multiple disabilities and for families with children who are typically developing. Axelson and colleagues also reported good internal consistency of questions related to frequency of occurrence of those occupations in the Child PFA. Overall, given the paucity of available instruments, the Child PFA is deemed a reliable and acceptable tool for measuring child engagement in family activities regardless of a child's diagnosis. But as with many other instrument tools, administrators are recommended to utilize sensitivity in the administration and interpretation of the Child PFA. Next, I will discuss the participants and sampling methodology. Participants will include two groups of families. The first group will include families who meet the inclusion criteria and are experiencing entrenched disadvantage. The first group of families will be a sample of convenience recruited by contacting 3 state organizations whose mission is to work with significantly marginalized and disadvantaged citizens and their families. The second group will include families not experiencing entrenched disadvantage. Recruitment will be by convenience and snowball sampling in urban communities within Arkansas. According to a review of similar studies measuring family occupations, family health, and utilizing the Child PFA, a return rate or sample size of approximately 50 families in each group was common and is the aim for this proposed study. Inclusion criteria for the study are families with children who live in the home full-time, are between the ages of 8 and 19, reside in an urban community in Arkansas, understand written and verbal English, and are experiencing entrenched disadvantage or are not experiencing entrenched disadvantage. Limited exclusion criteria and control of variables will be taken to address existing research needs of broadening static family health comparisons by incorporating complex and nuanced family configurations. Next, I will talk a little more about the procedures for this proposed study. Procedures for this proposed study will follow the principles described in Christensen, Johnson, and Turner 2014 for conducting experimental and non-experimental studies. This proposed research is a non-experimental descriptive and comparative study of 2 groups of families. Prior to initiation of the study, IRB approval will be required of the principal investigator's employer, the University of Central Arkansas, as well as doctoral program, Nova Southeastern University. And depending on where participants are recruited, IRB approval could be required of certain facilities and/or organizations. And I just recently talked to you about participants, but specifically regarding those local state organizations targeting marginalized populations, they will be used as a recruitment strategy, and they will help to mail, email, or hand deliver the informed consent letter, the Child PFA questionnaire, and the sociodemographic profile to consumers in accordance to the study's inclusion criteria. Disbursement will be conducted independent of the researcher, therefore confidentiality of eligible families will be maintained. The informed consent letter will contain information related to the research project, voluntary participation, and overall confidentiality. Families agreeing to participate will complete and return the informed consent letter, the Child PFA questionnaire, and the sociodemographic profile directly to the researcher via a self-addressed stamped envelope or through the state organization drop-off option. For the second group of families, those who are not experiencing entrenched disadvantage, the informed consent letter, the Child PFA questionnaire, and the sociodemographic profile will be the same as used for the first group of families and will be distributed in 2 to 3 different counties in central and southern Arkansas. The second group of families will adhere to the same return methods of documents as described for the first group of families. And upon return of the questionnaires for both groups, the researcher will review the Child PFA questionnaire and the sociodemographic profiles to ensure their completeness, that all responses meet the inclusion criteria, and that there is no need to exclude any participants. And on the following slides, I will talk more about data collection and data analysis. Research design. The research design I am proposing is a quantitative, non-experimental, descriptive, and comparative study of two groups of families. According to Shadish, Cook, and Campbell, 2002, non-experimental studies, such as the one I'm proposing, are appropriate when the cause of phenomenon being studied is not sufficiently clear and the researcher chooses to focus more on exploring the range of possible causes rather than honing in on a specific view. The ambiguity related to family health, as influenced by child engagement and family occupations, has been cited in the literature and was reported as a research problem and a gap in the literature in previous assignments. To the right side of the slide, you will see the research diagram I developed depicting this study's concept of comparative family engagement. Next, I will discuss data analysis. Data analysis will be quantitative using non-parametric methods and will be performed using Predictive Analytics Software Statistics 18. This is SPSS. Due to the ordinal data produced by the Child PFA questionnaire, the Mann-Whitney U-test would be appropriate when comparing the frequency of occurrence of child engagement in listed family occupations of the Child PFA between the two groups of families. Also, actual levels of engagement in the listed family occupations will be analyzed descriptively to look for median values. When looking for associations between these aspects, a difference of greater than one step will be noted. This is similar to previous studies using the Child PFA that was conducted by Axelson in 2014, as well as Axelson and colleagues in 2013. For more in-depth analyses, the Spearman's rank correlation coefficient would be appropriate to test the frequency of occurrence of family engagement in occupations and family characteristics, such as income and caregiver education level. Finally, I will discuss the anticipated limitations of this proposed study. Utilization of questionnaires as the main method of data collection for this proposed study poses its own underlying risk, including that information will be gleaned from a majority of well-functioning families or families who have a preference for participation in such studies, as well as the potential for health literacy barriers influencing understanding and interpretation of the survey. Most data for this study is designed to include information gleaned from questionnaires and currently includes few plans for collecting observational and narrative data. Future studies that integrate quantitative and qualitative data to obtain a comprehensive and holistic view of the family unit would be recommended. Moreover, the questionnaires in this study would utilize predominantly non-parametric tests to analyze ordinal data to reach good statistical conclusion validity. However, this will create a need for caution in regards to drawing conclusions and generalizing results of this study. In order to allow for the research consumer to determine the transferability of the findings, the principal investigator will describe the participants and location of study in sufficient detail in the written dissertation report. There is also the potential for the families who participate in this study to be considered a homogeneous group, since they reside in one United States city, will be a sample of convenience, and if their type and level of entrenched disadvantage are not very different from one another. Therefore, it will be important to compare this study to other socio-demographic groups in the United States which have contributed to the current American scholarly models of family health, to ascertain if these findings are generalizable to various levels of family structure, culture, and status when conceptualizing or measuring family health. It is also recommended that future studies explore families of varying socio-demographic status to further the literature and understanding of this topic. And finally, because this study aims to expand the current conceptualizations of healthy families to include a more comprehensive perception of family health and engagement in family occupations through the experiences of more diverse families, there is minimal research with which to compare the investigators' findings. Further research into engagement in family occupations, family health experiences of those experiencing entrenched disadvantage, or the family health experiences of families who can serve as a comparison to the current American scholarly models of family health will help to validate and/or refute the expected findings from this proposed research. And in conclusion, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation, and I welcome any comments, questions, or feedback you may have, either on the discussion board or my professional contact information, which is listed on the next slide.